Okay, let's go flying. Sun's out. It's brilliant, actually. And I got my Mobula 6. We can fly outside around the house. Got my transmitter. Yeah. And got my goggles. We're going analog today. So yeah, it's all good here. We'll get out there and we'll do some oh, hang on. Got an email. What's that? Oh, it's from Model Flying New Zealand. What have they got to say? This should be... Is this warning? What's going on here? Ooh. Okay, Editor Bruce from the future here. I'm busy editing up the video now. Notice I didn't really make this clear enough. So before we go on, I'm not blaming Model Flying New Zealand for this situation. This is a choice I have personally made. It's not down to them. They are doing their best for their membership of over 2,000 members. They have obviously considered the way they deal with this whole issue in respect to, getting these extra privileges, and they've come up with a solution that obviously suits most members. Doesn't suit me, but that's fine. It's a free country, it's a free world. They've decided to do that. I've decided that that is not a good fit for my own personal circumstances. They haven't kicked me out. They haven't taken my wings off me. They've just set up parameters which make it impossible for me to continue what I'm doing as a member of the organisation. So don't go ragging on Model Flying New Zealand. It's not them. If you want to rag on someone, it's the regulator that has created a rule set that is so restrictive that we need these carve-outs, these special exemptions, these Part 102s. That's the real problem. Not Model Flying New Zealand. They have just done the best they can do for their members under this ridiculous regulatory framework. So there we go. Having said that, let's get on, take a look at that letter. So let's take a look at this letter Model Flying New Zealand sent me on the 6th of March to Mr. Bruce Simpson. Blah, 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 blah. Concerns over an alleged breach of 101 and the Model Flying New Zealand 102 Operations Manual. Dear Mr. Simpson, I refer to your YouTube video titled Let's Chat About Non-Compliance, released on the 4th of March 2023. In the video you claim and appear to operate in breach of the 101 rules, namely, the rules are listed, which is beyond visual line of sight and operating as an FPV operator without a spotter. Two things I admitted, because they were not, in my honest opinion, they did not impact the safety of what I was doing in any way, shape or form, given the nature of the craft and the nature of the environment and all these safety checks I had made beforehand, right? No one has actually criticised this as being unsafe. This is not the issue of the letter. It's about compliance. And that was the discussion in the video. It's trying to raise the discussion of compliance. So Model Flying New Zealand goes on to say, this is obviously also then in breach of the Model Flying New Zealand CAR 102 Unmanned Aircraft Operations Manual, as well as our members manual. Now I should talk about this CAR 102 Unmanned Aircraft Operations Manual. What's happened here is this is very similar, very, very similar indeed to the situation in Canada, where some onerous rules have been applied and then the National Model Flying Body has achieved through negotiation, some kind of exemption, some special privilege that doesn't apply to non-members. Now, these extra privileges are described in this Part 102, this 102 Unmanned Aircraft Operations Manual, and in order to benefit from those privileges, you must follow a set of very clearly and carefully laid designated steps and precautions and procedures and processes that you need to comply with, right? So I'm in breach of this Unmanned Aircraft Operations Manual. Remember that I'm not flying at a club. I'm not flying with the expectation of any privileges bestowed by my membership being in effect. I'm flying as an individual in my own property. I still dispute whether these rules should apply to me at all when I'm wearing that hat. Anyway, letter goes on to say, as a Model Flying New Zealand member, the organisation grants members privileges that are beyond those which are available to non-members. This requires operation in compliance with our documentation. Operating in the manner demonstrated jeopardizes these approvals for all members. There you go. Again, apparently I am always operating under Model Flying New Zealand's auspices. I'm always subject to their rules and regulations regardless of where, how, when and what I am flying. That's their take on it. I don't see it that way, but that's what they're saying, and I'm just reading what I've been sent. They're going to say, it would be possible to carry out the flying demonstrated in the video and do it in compliance with the Civil Aviation Rules and MFNZ rules by applying Chapter 8 of this, effectively what's an exemption document. So I could have done this legally, and you might think, well, why would you not do it legally? If you can do it legally, solves all the problems. But let's look at what's involved in the level of compliance required to do this legally. Remember, I'm flying something like a tiny Mobula 6 sometimes around my own house. which is walled. We've got these, walls out the back, the kinetic energy of my Mobula 6 is less than 1 joule. The kinetic energy of a football, when kicked by any normal fit person, is up to 180 joules. So I'm almost 1/200th the energy of a football, which I'm legally allowed to kick around my backyard and kick in my front yard without any kind of special provisions. And remember, my Mobula 6 and my little tiny whoops, I have full control of those all the time. It may not look like it, but I do. Whereas if I kick a football, as soon as it leaves my boot, I have no control. Where it goes is entirely up to how well I kicked it in the first place, which way the wind's blowing, what it might bounce off, all these things. So I have no control of a football, which has 200 times the energy of my tiny whoop. Yet, let's see what I have to do to be legally compliant and fly my tiny whoop in the fashion that I did in the video being referred to here. Right, the first step, operating an aircraft meeting the limitations specified, which the model in the video does. So I'm partway there, I'm nearly legal. Attaining FPV wings. Now this is a certification that Model Flying New Zealand offers, which basically proves that you have knowledge, skill and understanding of FPV flying. Now, I could argue that I've been doing this longer than probably anybody in Model Flying New Zealand. I started my first FPV flying back in 2006 using a screen, and long before, and CCTV cameras and things, long before it became a thing. I was developing some UAV technology and I flew a model FPV way back. We're talking about, what is that now, about 13 years ago, over 13 years ago. But and nevertheless, this certification is required. Now, there's nobody around here that can certify me for this. So I'd have to take a trip, drive an hour or so to go to another club and try and organise to have someone there who's able to take tests for this certification, and I'd show them I could do it. So that's, this is a burden, but something I should probably do. Right, the next step, flying shielded and staying below 100 feet AGL, which is achieved in the video. So there you go, 2 out of 3 I got right. Then staying within 1,000 metres of the pilot, obviously achieved in the video. 3 out of 4. That's not so bad. Operating in Class G airspace or D8. Well, it was Class G airspace. Well, is it really Class G in my backyard, or is it not airspace at all? I don't know. But anyway, it was Class G. So here we go. We're 4 out of 5. And then controlling access to the property being flown. In this case, your own property. This could be achieved by closing gates or signage, etc. Now, this is interesting because I don't have any gates to close for the front part of my property where I was flying BVLOS. I don't have a gate in the driveway. So I would have to either buy a gate or put up some cones, go and buy some cones and put those cones out whenever I was flying. And signage, when people need to be advised of the risks associated with entering my property if I'm flying my Mobula 6. So I'd have to get some signs up, put up some signs. They have to be made. And also because my front fence is quite low, it's you can just step over it. I would expect then I'd have to have somebody actually making sure that people were not ignoring the signs and stepping over into the danger area where my Mobula 6 could choke them. So we'd have to hire a couple of security guards. Yeah, that's all right, no problems. We could do this. And then gaining initial approval of the flying site using a Google form. So go online, fill out a Google form, enter all the details and apply for approval to fly my own 20-gram Mobula 6 around my own home. And then finally, completing BVLOS Ops Google form. So another form to fill out, which is going to tell somebody that I'm flying BVLOS. I go on to say, the initial flying site approval comes from the prime person, myself, the author of this letter, and the BVLOS form is simply record keeping because we all know record keeping keeps you safe. Nothing averts disaster like record keeping. Anyway, neither form is onerous and can be completed quickly on, for instance, a cell phone. Okay, yeah. Now, none of these steps seem particularly onerous, but when you bring them all together, having to go and get certified for my FPV wings, having to put signage up, having to get a gate or cones, and then effectively having to police the front fence because it's so low to stop anyone from inadvertently jumping the fence and strolling into the danger area, filling out a couple of forms. Now, that doesn't sound too bad, but let's look, what am I trying to authorize here? It's not like I'm trying to fly, a large heavy model in an area where there could be foot traffic. No, it's flying a Mobula 6 around my own home. A 20-gram FPV toy around my, really, the amount of paperwork. Yes, it's possible, but it's disproportionate to the risk. And this is the thing. Where is the pragmatism? Where is the common sense? Where is the, just logic behind this? Surely, if it's a 20-gram drone, you shouldn't have to do a damn thing because there is no risk
to man or beast. So why all this paperwork? Yeah, anyway, that's beside the point. We'll carry on with what they sent me. Whilst you make a strong point of being non-compliant, the newly introduced rules by Modify New Zealand are designed to precisely permit safe flying of the type you're doing by following a few simple measures. Well, hiring a security guard, sticking up, getting signs made and posting them, buying road cones and putting them across my driveway, filling out forms, driving an hour to get a certification. I don't call it simple in this case, not proportionate to the risk that is being generated by my flying. And it's unbelievable. No one could accept that as being reasonable. Anyway, let's go on. Please consider this letter as a formal warning. A formal warning. My goodness, CAA didn't mind, but Model Flying New Zealand does. Model Flying New Zealand promotes safe use of recreational UAVs. Not model aircraft, just UAVs. This is the problem. We've got model flying bodies that they do not recognise there's a difference between a drone and UAVs. A model aircraft's not a UAV, let's be serious. Recreational UAVs in New Zealand, and considerable effort has been made in gaining the privileges of the variances specified in our 102 documentation. So yep, they've spent a lot of time and effort to do this because they've had to play within the rules and get this carve out, this exemption effectively for members to give them special privilege so they can do things that they couldn't normally do under the rules. And then they're going to say, we more than encourage members to use them. Again, flying outside of the documented and approved procedures jeopardises the organisation and its members' continued ability to exercise these privileges. So there you go. This leaves me on the horns of a dilemma, because if I continue to do what I'm doing, flying a 20-gram toy around my house in the evening, as I have done for many, many years, it could derail the whole thing. Other people in the Model Flying New Zealand membership could lose all their privileges. Associated with this document, because I choose to fly safely around my own house without signage, without gates, without orange cones, without security people on the border, could endanger all those privileges. And I don't doubt it for 1 minute, because we saw what happened in Canada. In Canada, there was this similar thing. Mac negotiated this exemption that gave their members special privilege, just like this 102 gives Model Flying New Zealand members the special privilege. And at the drop of a hat, without notice and without any justification, Transport Canada could whip that back, and CAA could whip this away from Model Flying New Zealand. And that's the dangers of entering into this kind of arrangement with the regulator. You are so vulnerable. And so if CAA saw me flying my little tiny toy around the house, they could go to Model Flying New Zealand and say, right, we're cancelling your 102. Everybody flies under the rules again. And all that hard work that Model Flying New Zealand put in to create this document, get it passed and recognised and agreed to by CAA, is down the toilet. I can't do that. I can't put that level of risk on the membership of Model Flying New Zealand just because I want to have fun and fly sometimes in the only way I can. So it leaves me on the horns of a dilemma, doesn't it?
Okay, first, I apologise for the light. It's the clouds are coming and going, and it's, not very good lighting. But let's unwrap what we are seeing here. Now, I've got this warning from Model Flying New Zealand. They've told me that if I continue to be non-compliant, then I put it at risk the privileges that they have, the hard-won privileges they have got for other members in the organisation. That means that, if I continue to fly this around my house, other people could suffer as a result of my intransigence and my non-compliance. And let's be honest, nobody wants to be that guy. I mean, this is very similar to Canada. Somebody did something wrong. Transport Canada whipped that exemption away from Mac. I don't want to be the guy that does something wrong and gets that exemption whipped away from 2,000 other model flyers in New Zealand. So I'm not going to do that. It's totally unreasonable. I'm a man of principle, so I have to take a stand here. And the only thing I can, well, two things I can do. I could go through that convoluted process to get approval to fly this around my house. I could buy some road cones. I could buy some signs, have some signs made. I could hire someone to stop someone from jumping over the fence, and I could file all the forms and get my FPV wings, and all for a 2 or 3 minute flight of an evening with something that is zero risk. Is it really reasonable? Is that? I don't mind procedures and processes and regulations and rules when they're proportionate to risk. And I just don't see the proportionality in that. I don't see it. Now, if I was going out into another area and I was flying something that might have been 2 or 3 kilograms and it was fast and it represented a very real danger to anyone that might have got in the way, then yeah, I could see the reason for all those steps to verify that it's a safe operation. But seriously, We're talking this. We're talking this. And disproportionality is one of my biggest complaints about the regulatory frameworks we're operating under. People say we need rules. Yeah, maybe we do need some rules, but we don't need to over-regulate, over-complicate, overburden people with things that do nothing to increase safety. And if we look at that letter, some of the stuff's just for record keeping. Record keeping in its own doesn't make an operation safe. Whether someone's got a note that I'm flying this around my house or not, it doesn't make the operation itself safer. It's nothing to do with safety. It's bureaucracy at its worst. So in that regard, I don't think that compliance with Model Flying New Zealand's 102, which would give me the privilege of doing this, is an option for me. It may be for other people, but not for me, because it would compromise my principles that say regulation should be proportional to risk, and that is not in any way proportional to the risk. So I'm not going to compromise that principle. I'm a guy, I live by principles. Principles are often a burden. You know, it's easy to, a lot of people, they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. Well, I do both, because it's hypocrisy not to do both. If you're going to talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk. You can't just say, oh yeah, well, I'll let it slip this time. No, you've got to be firm to your principles. Otherwise you can't sleep straight at night. So I'm not going to bow to ridiculous over-regulation, as even the 102 through Model Flying New Zealand represents, in my personal opinion. So that leaves me with the option of just not flying whoops around my house anymore, or resigning my membership of Model Flying New Zealand, so I'm no longer putting other people's privileges at risk. And there's another option, because people could say, well, just fly anyway, just don't tell anybody. You know, just if nobody knows, it doesn't matter. But again, it's a matter of principle. I shouldn't have to effectively lie to protect the rights of others, protect the privileges of others. And also, I might want to post some video of me doing this, because I need to prove. If we hide all our non-compliance, if we say, oh, I'm non-compliant, but I'm not going to show any evidence of that, then the regulators go out and say, things are safe because of our rules. Because they're not seeing the widespread non-compliance that is leading to absolutely no incidents, no deaths, no injuries, no property damage. And this is one of the problems I have with Model Flying New Zealand's attitude to it. Yeah, just go legal, you know, fill out the forms, do the stuff. If we do that, if we all do that and then fly these around our house, CAA will say, look, our rules, our tough regimented rules and paperwork and all that stuff, it's working, because people are flying these things and no one's getting hurt because of our rules. And I say, no, that's not right. People are flying these things anyway. Your rules doesn't matter for beans when it's something like this. And I would rather show people that, look, you can be non-compliant and safe. And there's the evidence. But we see it all the time. Go on YouTube. Look at YouTube videos. There are thousands upon thousands of videos of people flying FPV with no spotter. And where's the evidence that anybody's ever been injured, killed, or any property's been damaged? There is none. So we have irrefutable evidence that people are doing this safely. Now, if we all had to comply with stuff like Model Flying New Zealand are asking for, and we went through all these processes and then we did it, we couldn't make the claim that people can do this safely without all this rigid regimentation. So we have to keep the flow of evidence up, and I can show the evidence by being non-compliant, fly this around my house, prove that we don't need people on the gates, we don't need signs and tape and all sorts of crap like that, and 1,000,002 forms and all sorts of stuff filled out. You can just do it, because the intrinsic risk is so damn low. And all things should be proportionate to risk. So there you go. That leaves me with only one real option, that is not to renew my Model Flying New Zealand membership, because Model Flying New Zealand states effectively in that letter that doesn't matter what I'm flying, where I'm flying, or how I'm flying, their rules apply. And if I violate their rules, which include following CAA regulations, I jeopardise the privileges available to 2,000 other model flyers in New Zealand. So my only option when faced with that is to recuse myself from membership, to say I'm not going to renew my membership when it falls due on April 1st, the end of the month. Not going to do it. Not going to, and then I'm no longer a member. So whatever I do does not impact the freedoms and the privileges of the membership. So I'm going to take a hit for the team. I will take a hit for the team. I want to be able to continue my evidence-based crusade to say we're over-regulated and here's the proof. But I don't want to do it in a way that compromises other people's privileges. So I will no longer be a member of Model Flying New Zealand. And that comes with a pretty heavy price for me, because some of the privileges that have been negotiated by Model Flying New Zealand include wings. Wings, it's a certification. Basically what happens is you have to prove that you understand, that you know the rules, and that you're capable of flying in a way that doesn't endanger people. So you've got to prove your knowledge, skill, and experience, basically. And that's a good thing, because then you have a known, some people are stupid and can't fly for beans and don't understand the rules. It makes sense to give them fewer privileges than the people who have proven themselves. And in that letter, it talks about FPV wings, which I don't have because I haven't had anyone to test me for those. But since I've been flying FPV for so long, it's a given that I would pass my wings with ease if I was tested for them. But the situation is that if I leave model flying New Zealand, my wings are no longer valid. In fact, I don't have any wings because wings are conditional on membership. The rationale here is that you may be a really accomplished, skilled, knowledgeable flyer who is responsible and flies with great care and attention while you're a member, but if you don't pay your $100, you become reckless, you become ignorant, and you lose all your skills. And that's the way, if you think about it, that's what basically they're saying happens. If you don't pay your money, your skills are gone, your understanding is gone, and your attitude goes to hell in a handbasket. I don't agree with that, but again, I'm not in a position to make a decision on that. So I will have to relinquish my wings by not being a member, and that means an awful lot around here, because as we saw 10 years ago or so when I lost my wings, because Model Flying New Zealand were being asses then, they're not being asses now, they're just doing what they have to. When I lost my wings 10 years ago, nowhere I could fly, because we live in an area that is dominated by an airfield and a helipad. Every reasonable flying area around here is within 4 kilometres of those two facilities, and under New Zealand rules, you may not fly a model aircraft or a drone within 4 kilometres of a helipad or airfield without these wings. Once I lose those, I can't fly at the airfield anymore. I can't fly anywhere near the airfield or the helipad unless I'm flying a shielded operation, which means I'm flying in an area where I'm not going above the tallest tree and there is some kind of barrier that if something went wrong, my plane wouldn't drift onto the airfield and endanger aircraft. So that would restrict me. I could still fly in the local parks, but it would restrict me basically to multi-rotors, because even my DLG, when I give that a toss, it goes 3 or 4 times higher than the tallest tree in the area. So that would be immediately, as soon as it cleared the tallest tree, it's illegal because I don't have my wings. And as I say, I have then lost all my skills and my knowledge, and I have a reckless attitude to safety. So yeah, it really, really hits into my ability to fly legally in the district. So effectively, it means that I will be Mr. Non-Compliance because I can't fly without being non-compliant. Will I be unsafe? Of course not. Never have been and never will be. But it means I am non-compliant. I open myself up to getting fines and prosecutions and possibly even worse, we don't know. Because I have principles. And principles don't gel well with bureaucracy and the attitudes of people like regulators and so forth. And pragmatism. I'm pragmatic, but they don't believe in pragmatism. They believe that an extra form will dispense with the need for pragmatism. So that's where I'm at. As of the end of the month, I will no longer have wings. I will no longer be able to fly. I will be able to go out and film other people flying, but I myself will not be able to fly unless I'm under the direct supervision of somebody who has the wings certification, which means really it's only going to be on a Sunday, if at all, because Ron, who has wings and could be in a position to supervise me, he is obviously unwell and he's not able to get to the field, so I can't say, hey Ron, come down to the field and supervise me while I fly. We've got people like Neil, he lives an hour away, Bill lives an hour away, most other people live quite a way out of the district, so nobody's going to be able to, if I want to go and have a fly or test something or whatever, I can't just ring someone up and say, look, come down and supervise me, because they're too far away and they're working. So my flying at the airfield, pretty much buggered. But it's a choice I have to make. I have to take one for the team, because the only alternative is to endanger the privileges of 2,000 other people, or to give up on the whole non-compliance thing and say, just follow the rules, which I refuse to do, because those rules are killing this hobby. As I've said before, it's 18 years and over to get an operator ID in the UK. It is 14 years and over to sit the necessary exam to get legally flying in Canada. And it is, I think, last time I checked, it was 16 or something in Australia. Kids, verboten. You're not allowed in. Hobby's not for you. Hobby's for old men who like to sit in the sun and fly in circles. That's who the hobby's for. I'm not having it. I'm not having that at all. It's ridiculous. I was at the field today. I was there when several planes flew in for a meeting of the Sports Aviation Association, which is people who most of them build their own planes. And they were all standing around having a chat. And I heard them say, because they saw the model jets were flying there as well, they saw these model jets and said, who here didn't start with model aeroplanes? And they'd all started their interest in aviation with model aircraft. It couldn't have been better. This was a perfect proof of what we're all saying. These people, and there were probably half a dozen of them, said, no, we all started with model aircraft. It's great to see these model aircraft. They don't realise that that's not an option for a lot of people anymore. The regulations are pushing our kids out of the hobby. So those kids that would have got into the hobby and enjoyed it and gone on to manned aviation, perhaps as a career in aviation, they're not going to be doing it. They won't be there because they will never have been able to get into the hobby in the first place if things keep going the way they are. And I'm not prepared to have that. We need young people coming into this hobby. And another hit I take with this loss of my wings is I can no longer train people to fly. If someone comes along and they want to join the hobby and learn to fly, I can't train them. Not allowed to. Not at the airfield. Nope, can't fly at the airfield without being supervised. So it closes the door. This is just crazy. It's what they want. They want to close the door on recreational model flying for reasons we've all established. But it's just, hopefully this just demonstrates how crazy and out of control rules are. When Mr. Safety, the guy that designed the ADSB alarm, the guy that brought aviation radios to the airfield, the guy that has been doing this for over 60 years, never hurt anyone, never killed anybody, never damaged anyone else's property, when I am going to be sidelined because I choose to stand up for the freedoms and the privileges and the rights of other people. It's just, the world is a crazy place. Honestly, it's really crazy. Tell me how crazy you think it is in the description, but I'll tell you who's not crazy: the people who support my efforts through Patreon or through channel membership. Those are the people who are real heroes here. They're the ones who realise what's going on. They're the ones who are prepared to step up to the plate, even if they're not prepared to or unable to, get out there and preach from the book of reform. They are putting their money where their mouth is, and I find that very important, and I thank them all every time in every video. You guys are the heroes of this hobby. You should be proud of yourselves. There you go. Thanks for watching. Yeah, we'll see what happens, but I will be at the field. I'll be filming other people, and maybe not aerial shots though. Thanks for watching, guys. To the comments, thumbs up the video, spread the link on your socials. We need lots of exposure of how bad this hobby is getting in terms of rampant over-regulation. Bye for now.
Overregulation is like a tumor. It's killing our hobby. It must be terminated. Now!